If I were to ask you as the governor, how does that poll? If I ever say that in my office, slap me. There's a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse going on. 80% of school taxes are used in the administrative side, but that you can do this with a lot less money when you really focus on the people. And that's why I spend most of my time out in the field talking to folks and not just buying spots on the air. I applaud Craig for that, and Ms. Kerwin, I've seen a lot of hers, and I like a lot of her bills. She's authored 3 bills on counter-human trafficking, so we follow her too. Hey, I'm going to interpose using these biblical principles to say, this is how I'm going to stand in the gap for my citizens, these serfs, essentially. That fraud, waste, and abuse does not happen, because that's people, we got the good old boy networks down at the local levels too, sects of the Muslim faith that are more extreme than others. But ultimately, most of them are setting up a cultural shift. They're not there to assimilate and go to their mosque on the weekends. If I want to overthrow a country, I demoralize, I destabilize, okay? I disenfranchise a populace. Now, if you're that dang dumb to allow it to happen on your watch, you don't need to be in politics. You don't need to be in leadership. Some bad things have come across that border, all the way down to New Mexico, where people get paid off on that border to bring things across that are national defense issues, right? They could take planes out of the sky. We'll just put that there. We were never on Operation Lone Star capable of handling the most dangerous course of action, because the way that the rules of engagement were written by lawyers did not give us authorities. You'll be hearing from me. I won't be spending time in the governor's mansion. I'll be on the road. I'll be going around the state. I'll be jumping on birds. I'll be in the command and control bird on the border. We'll be out there, but they sent me a branding person, said, what's your brand? I said, my brand's America, Texas.
Voting season is upon us. And what better way to exercise your right to vote than by casting your vote for APOS floors and granite countertops to help you update your home? APOS offers design, fabrication, and installation of granite countertops, floors, and more for both residential and commercial projects. APOS is where customer service and commitment to the community come together. Vote today for APOS floors to install your new floor and granite countertops.
Welcome to the Texas Transparency Project, where transparency perpetuates accountability. Our mission is to help people judge candidates, ballot issues, and public problems in a fair way. We focus on how a person will use power, how their choices will affect your daily life, and whether they can be trusted to use that power responsibly. Transparency means the public can see how leaders use power. Accountability happens when voters use what they see to make smart choices at the ballot box. Public office should not be earned just because someone is famous, someone is popular, or well-connected, because popularity is not the same as ability. If we do not judge leaders carefully, we can end up with selfish or harmful leadership. Texas Transparency Project does not tell you who to vote for. We give you the tools to decide who should represent our communities and how to hold them accountable once they're in office. We're coming off Liberty and Justice event down here at Cleburne Conference Center in Johnson County in Texas House District 58. And we're blessed to have Doc Pete Chambers, who is a retired U.S. Lieutenant Colonel, and he's running for governor of Texas. He has a long career across active duty, the reserves, and National Guard. He served as an enlisted infantryman, later became a Special Forces Green Beret officer, and also served as a flight surgeon. He deployed overseas and into combat and earned multiple awards, including the Purple Heart. Doc also served Texans as a primary care doctor in his final years in uniform. He served in the Texas Army and National Guard, including support roles tied to border operations. He became widely known after challenging orders he believed were unlawful, and he later testified in a federal case connected to vaccine mandate disputes involving Navy SEALs. After retiring, he founded Remnant Ministry Texas, which focuses on disaster relief and fighting human trafficking. He is now running for governor of Texas and says his priorities are service, truth, transparency, and decisive action. Doc, Pete Chambers, is it okay to call you Doc?
Yeah, that's that term of endearment you get. The first time I got it was in Iraq. First time somebody said, "Doc, we need you over here." and it stuck because it's usually the corpsman, right, for the Marines, and then for us the medic. But because I was so close to the action most of the time, I ran out with them.
Well, I appreciate that. So Doc, welcome to Texas Transparency Project. We appreciate your time. We just left TPUSA's
Yeah.
Liberty and Justice event. What were your thoughts on Liberty and Justice, and how did you feel about the crowd and your reception here in a Texas House District 58 Johnson
Feels
County?
like home.
Feels like home.
My people. Yeah, I'm not from this county, but it's just, that's my people. I grew up in the same kind of small community, but a lot of patriotism, faith, that was a common theme throughout. It's just great to feel welcome and to have the, just all the different candidates. And we all got 3 minutes, and it was great to just go through there to meet people, but then to hear their points. And it was a packed house, which you always love.
Yeah, it's great. We're blessed here in Johnson County.
Yeah.
Every election cycle, we get two big events, and it was a good one. We're going to talk about your run for governor here, and before we get into that, how's the campaign been going? You are a busy man. You're all over the state.
Yes, we are. This is event number 4 today. Hey, and name recognition for a guy that's running for governor when you have a short run. Essentially, you're taking off from the November 8th to December 8th filings. That's really where people start looking for somebody, and they don't really pay attention to you until you get to January, February, where we're at. So for me, it's just it's been a crescendo, and it hasn't slowed down, which is exactly the way we did it, because we have to run a streamlined operation. We don't have $50, $100 million war chests where we're going up against. This is a true David and Goliath story, but it's also, to me, at the end of this, I believe that it's going to show, no matter what the outcome is, no matter what, God's will is going to be done, first of all. But that you can do this with a lot less money when you really focus on the people. And that's why I spend most of my time out in the field talking to folks and not just buying spots on the air.
Well, we appreciate in Johnson County, we're a smaller county, and we appreciate you coming out and spending time with us. So we're going to talk about some of the everyone has heard the term the five W's. We're going to talk. I got 3 I like to ask individuals. And the first one is about you specifically. So who is Doc Chambers in your own words?
I'm the son of an immigrant who came here legally, changed his last name to Chambers. His last name, most people couldn't spell, read, but he fought in a war, two wars, as a young man, teenager, against communists in his country in Eastern Europe. And my mom's from the U.S., and he came to America, worked in the hospital, became a doctor, had a servant's heart. One of the toughest men I knew that was in combat as a teenager, but loved America, hated communism, and taught me, hey, when you're 17, 18, and I was 17 when he took me down to sign up, delayed entry, and by 18 I was at Fort Benning, Georgia. But I grew up with the son of an immigrant who assimilated to U.S. culture, and this is a key. I've had people say, well, you work the border, and these poor people are coming across. Yeah, I understand. But there's a way to come across, and there's a way that overwhelms the system, and that's what's happened to us. So that's the experiences I had of just that servant's heart, watching my dad riding around the country with him with a little black bag on my lap on the weekends, and he would trade for stuff because people didn't have money sometimes, and just to trade those services for medical services was great to watch and learn, and that's what I wanted to do someday. But I also wanted to serve. I did, and I fell in love with the military. So I've had a foot in it one way or another since 83 all the way through 22. Last 8 years being in the Texas Military Department, Texas National Guard.
So you talk about you started off as an infantryman. Do you still have nightmares of Sand Hill down there at Benton?
Oh, yeah, Sand Hill. Yeah, Sand Hill was, for me, it was Harmony Church, which is the only World War II barracks in Vietnam. My uncle went through the same barracks I was in. They were building Sand Hill when I was there, and I remember looking at it. We called it the Sand Hilton because it was so nice. Now it's dilapidated, but that was in 1983. But I learned from instructors that had all been to Vietnam, and I learned a lot of really hard truths. I learned from men that had survived in combat, some serious combat. You think of the volume of fire of Vietnam and the amount of the intensity of it. For me, we fought in 20 years of wars over the last, in and out deployments. But it was never as intense as that could ever even come close to. In my opinion, and studying history.
Agree. Yeah, I have 8 deployments. We are definitely blessed with our technology and skill set. 100%.
We always have the advantage, and then the night we own the night.
And we owe a lot of Vietnam veterans that we're not treated well. I think society has kind of shifted. In my generation, being a GWAT baby,
Right.
we benefited from how society's tried to right
That's
some
right.
of those wrongs. And a shout out to our Vietnam veterans for
Yeah, my
what
uncle
they
was a
went through.
door gunner on a Huey, and he was in 2 hard landings, he called them. Never talked about it. But, these guys came back, and he went to work. He was a sheriff deputy, retired. Never heard a word about any of it, and until I became a soldier and then came back for more, and then he started talking to me about it. So it's a different generation, but we were welcome back, I believe. It wasn't the same. But then we watched it all disappear in a few weeks in Afghanistan and went, "What was that all about?"
Yeah.
Right? We're soldiers. We do, we go where we're told to go and do what we're supposed to do. But for me, it's just about the man that's to the left and the right of you. In that moment, there's nothing else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Nothing
And
else.
so thank you very much for your service.
You
We
as well.
appreciate it. Close to 40 years, storied career. So
Right.
thank you.
Yeah.
So that's you in your own words.
Yeah.
Most people would, put their feet up and relax on the rocking porch on a Texas porch.
Right.
What makes you want to throw your hat in the ring and run for
You ever seen a
governor?
movie called Secondhand Lions? A couple old guys on their porch, these old timers, and that's all they did. They sat on their front porch and chased away salesmen. It's kind of what I saw myself doing, just getting a ranch and just, I family up on the Red River on both sides, the Okie side and the Texas side. And I wanted to raise some cattle and sell them to the roping industry just because I thought that'd be nice. It's easy work. I always can sell my cattle. I already had bought some head of cattle, but I sold them after I got out and started the counter human trafficking thing. And then I realized, being a man of faith too, um, there's no retirement in the Bible. There's no retirement. Caleb went across into the promised land at 80 something years old with a sword in his hand, chasing Nephilim. I mean, that's just so. I look at that and I say, well, and like my dad used to tell me, when you retire, you're gonna get old. And he was, up in his 80s, and he still, did fine. Um, but lots of things shape us throughout life, right? War shapes you. I mean, it is. There's nobody can tell you that's truly seen it that it doesn't affect you. Now they can say PTSD. I don't like the D on there, the dysfunction. I think you can have stress and you're post stress, but dysfunction. If you get up in the morning, you make your bed, and you do your job, and you take care of your family. Don't let somebody speak those things over you. Because that typically in our world leads to SSRIs, medication. VA likes to throw pills at people. Stay functional. Look for a task and purpose, and that's what I've done. So when I left the Texas Military Department, I went straight to work with ranchers down there that I'd met on the border, just teaching them how to deny territory to cartels or to bad actors, mules and coyotes that were coming across, not animals, but people transporting things, people and drug products, sometimes guns, to not get in a gunfight. Every Texan on the border wants to get in a gunfight, it seems. And I tell them, you do that once, and they're gonna come back. And so my job was to teach how to deny territory. As a Green Beret, I knew how to do that. I was just part of the training. And then it just led into, but I know enough about this counter human trafficking because I saw it firsthand as a green suitor, as a soldier on the border. And then I met some other guys and we came together. We started the Remnant A team, so it's like the Green Berets A team. But then we went ahead and became a ministry. So went through the process of becoming a ministry and 508c1a, and that opened up a lot of doors. North Carolina happened. We went out there with the hurricane, the Guadalupe River on July the 4th. Spent about a month down there, just responding to our back door. And when you take people that are used to living in chaos like us, we thrive in that world. We can make decisions on the fly. And so I didn't have to do much. I was an administrative control, Willie, for a lot of civilians that came in. We brought in SEALs and MARSOC and some Green Berets, and they came and helped us in our disaster relief. So it's kind of nice because everybody's volunteer. We don't get any money for that. We all have disabilities and paychecks that come in for retirement. So we're in a good place. We've got a lot of experience on the team. Until I was ambushed in Bonham, Texas, by a bunch of folks that asked me to run for governor. And that changed a lot of that.
Yeah. So
ambushed.
It's ironic you bring up task and purpose. I think that's a key to a lot of veterans post service, going from serving, and it's important you find task and purpose. And it sounds like you found yours in running for governor. And before we get into the specifics here, and especially into what you've already kind of begun to talk about, some of your service on the border and how you would pivot to a governor's role. Let's talk about what are the non-negotiables for you, and in so much as if elected governor, what must always guide your decisions if you're elected? What is your foundational strength that would prevent you from becoming part of that well-fed swamp down there in Austin and losing your way?
A lot of the lessons that I learned in basic training, honestly, carry over. A lot of the things that I read in the Bible carry over, right? And you start putting these things together with your experience, doing the right thing when nobody's watching, right? Not being subject to one of the four things. When I used to, do counterterrorism or even counter intelligence, seeing a bad actor in our ranks that we were training, let's say an Afghan National Army guy or National Police or Iraqi National Policeman. What are the four things that people look at when you flip somebody? It's the MICE principle: money, ideology, coercion, and ego. Being aware of those things.
Talking about approaches now.
Now to see, right? To see what are they going to throw at me? And it's already happened. Like I've had 3 of the 4 already that have been approaches, right? And so you see where those things happen. Now, because I've spent time on Capitol Hill, I've done liaison work. I've briefed the Speaker of the House of the United States of America, congressmen, numerous CODELs, congressional delegations downrange, speaking to these people face to face, and watching young congressmen start out and thinking, this is a great guy. And then watching when they become senior over years, this is why I'm a term limit guy, and them selling their souls. Right. Now, I'm not here to judge, but I'm here to say that, I've seen people flip. And then you wonder why they leave office with millions and millions of dollars. This is not the purpose for me. Now taking what I learned from my dad, the public service, but servant's heart, and then putting it onto the position that I'm going for, which is governor. And I said this to Mr. Bannon not too long ago on his show. I said, I don't really like the term governor. It's too British for me. Right? Didn't we fight them? But senior public servant, because truly that's what it is. Right? It's Article 1, Section 2 of the Bill of Rights of the state of Texas Constitution. All power is inherent with the people, right? So I don't get the power. That's perceived power. And when you make that mistake and you flip into that world, that's ego. So there's the E on the MICE principle. So ego as a commander, right? As a commander, or as an officer, as a senior NCO, you must exude confidence and demonstrate competence, period. Otherwise, people won't follow you. Right. I've been in that position as the young captain.
100%.
Right.
Absolutely.
And if you don't look to your senior NCOs as a young captain, you're in trouble. Right. Because they're going to carry you through, especially in the Green Berets. There's no way to hide that. That weakness will come out. But if you use humility, they will guide you through because they've got the experience. Right. So you must exude that and you must demonstrate that. Otherwise, people will not follow you, period. Now, sometimes people get anointed, put into positions of authority because of who they know, how much money they come in this thing with. As a guy like me, an outsider that's not part of the crony establishment political machine, didn't step up, starting county commission, work my way into a local representative, state, U.S. federal senator or congressman, right? That's the typical stair-step process. People say, why'd you go straight for governor? Well, didn't Eisenhower go straight for president after World War II? Now I'm not Eisenhower. I didn't run Normandy, but I got a lot of experience. And so for me to command, all I have to do is find the brightest people in the world and give them 3 things. Give me the bottom line up front, the so what. I want to know why you're talking to me. Why are we discussing this? What's the importance of this? Then I need courses of action. And we need to be decisive, right? The perfect plan? No. I need a plan that will get us out the door. Because right now in the world we're in, it's chaotic.
Yes, sir.
And how do you control chaos? What do you do when you have a malfunction in your parachute? You go to emergency procedures.
Yes.
You don't think, well, sure, I wonder if I'm going terminal velocity yet. I wonder what this is going to look like on the ground. No, a pilot, the same thing. I was a flight surgeon. You're flying something. You don't let go of the yoke when you're running out of fuel. You fly the thing, right? So you control the controllables. So in doing that, when you stair-step it down in the leadership principles, this job is actually pretty easy, but it requires one thing that I haven't seen a lot of, and this is key critical to me, from an outsider out of politics, is reading the job description, right? So the job description for the governor, number 1, responsible for the budget. Now I'm going to match up what I learned from Sergeant First Class Jesse Canales, 24th AmeriCal Vietnam vet, that taught me as a young private, right, who made me the platoon leader of my training platoon in Fort Benning. Here I am, 18, leading these guys just because my last name was the same name as somebody. He lost a buddy in Vietnam. He put me in that job. He said, "You're responsible for everything that happens or fails to happen, Chambers," in a Puerto Rican accent, right? And I said, "Okay." And I never forgot that, right? And then I never forgot my general orders. I never forgot that I'm responsible for everything in my limit of my post. And I will quit my post only when properly relieved. So as a commander that's looking at the job description number one of the governor, I have to say that I'm responsible for the budget. Now, if there's fraud, waste, and abuse, I'm responsible. Did I investigate that? Did I truly look at that? Because if I'm the guy that's that senior public servant and all power is inherent in the people, go back to that Bill of Rights, I'm derelict of duty if I don't.
Well, and some of the principles you're talking about, we have a great system of government here in America. We're really blessed, but it is very, very dependent on honest, God-fearing men and women to be a part of it and to be leading our country. And sometimes individuals, when they get in those high places, they lose their way. And it's good to hear that you have a strong foundational grounding on what would guide you, and you have a great if we talked about Sand Hill and Fort Benning, and now we talked about bottom line up front, bluff on every type of memo that you get. If you know, you know.
I had it on my door when people used to come in as a light colonel. I'm like, "Did you read the sign out there? You're going into too much detail."
Yeah, absolutely.
The bottom line up front.
So, anyways, we're going to start getting into some of the biggest issues here, and personally, I think the state's a little behind on this. We're blessed here in Johnson County and in Texas House District 58. We have a local legend. His name's Craig Hunley. He has a horse barn Facebook group, and since 2019, he's been fighting to eliminate property tax. He worked with our state rep this last session to file some bills on some central appraisal district reform, eliminate property taxes, and so we have a Representative Craig Hunley, and it looks like at least there's a larger discussion at the state level, a lot of political theater at that level about eliminate property tax. But you've been talking about this as you've been out campaigning. What is Doc Chambers' plan to eliminate property tax?
Yeah, great question, because this plan is not just me. And I want to just clarify that right now. There's teams of people that are helping me. These are people that have volunteered. So let's think about job description again for governor. It's authorized to the governor, task forces and commissions, right? We stopped Texans stopped the Trans-Texas corridor with a 391 commission during Rick Perry, stopped the highway from Mexico to Canada. Okay, so citizens have more power than they really understand or know about for the most part. It's my job to be the bully pulpit to say, "Hey, you have more power," right? So if things don't happen in Austin, how do we do that? So when I go around, and I'm so glad that I met Mr. Hunley, met Craig, because he brought me up here and I got to sit in one of y'all's CAD meetings. Enlightening. Not knowing that system. You can't know what you don't know. So you come in and you say, "Okay, well, I need to devour this." So I came up late one night or early one night, left here late, but it was probably the most enlightening thing as to how does this model get spread around the state now, because you got citizens sitting on that board. They're not appointed by something that's trying to raise money, the school board, et cetera, right? And that seems to be the problem, right? It seems to be a problem. If there's something vested in there that says, "Well, I need to get more money for me," and they're kind of proud of getting more money for the school district, I get it. Schools have to run. But when I'm looking at the numbers, and I've got people that are doing that, one of these teams, and we're looking at all the different ways to decrease taxes, to eliminate taxes, essentially. Eventually, you can't just flip it on its head, or the economy will be, upside down. But when you look at that, this is a cornerstone, because as the properties continue to get appraised higher and higher, good folks that can't sell their house for what the next property was bought next door, and this is a common thing I'm seeing around the state. Foreign buyer comes in and says, "I'm going to buy this house for cash." They're going to buy this thing. It's going to increase the property tax in the community. Or in Wimberley, where I'm at in Hill Country, we had a big influx of IT that came into that area during the bringing in the data, not only data centers, but the big corporations. As we lured them in, well, they're Californians. They got a lot of money. They expect to pay a lot more, and it basically taxed the local citizens out. Right? The middle class is taxed out. So you've got neighborhoods now, which houses that shouldn't be appraised at what they are. But right now, I'm going to tell you, we're close to a bubble that's going to crash again, and we're really going to hurt. So by doing what you're doing, you're really, there's a stopgap in Johnson County for sure, a buffer, if you will, to protect from that happening. because we've got to always look down the road, not just what we're doing now, but what happens later on if the economy drops out from under us, just like the 2008 bubble, the housing bubble. So that's that. I applaud that. I applaud Craig for that, and Miss Kerwin. I've seen a lot of hers, and I like a lot of her bills. She's authored 3 bills on counter human trafficking, so we follow her too because she's added some.
She's done a
She's
good
added
job.
some teeth to it, and she's also helped sponsor another amendment, which added a lot
Correct.
of teeth. Right.
So it's interesting you talk about like in this I'm knee deep in the property tax world, and there is a little bit of a lack of understanding with some individuals regarding they think you can just snap your fingers and eliminate this tax, and it's really eliminate property tax, abolish property tax. Those are great slogans. Having a great slogan, but it's really about a revenue replacement. We have to limit the revenue that's coming in because we are overspending. We do have massive fraud, waste, and abuse. That's an issue that you've spoken on a little bit. But you've talked about this phased in approach. Is it fair to say that Dog Chambers is full for abolishment, but responsible ways of doing that?
Absolutely, it has to be responsible. It has to be, because right now we're just building the knowledge base. So I'm going to put it in military terms here just for a second. Information preparation, essentially, of the battlefield, quote unquote. This isn't a battlefield, but it is a battlefield. But it to take the information that we have now and taking smart people that have already been doing this. I don't have to understand it all. I can devour a lot of things. You should have seen first year of medical school, all these books, and here's this infantry guy going, okay, I got to learn all this stuff. I can do it, right? And sit down and learn a lot of things. But to be able to put it together functionally from a 40,000 foot view, to come in and be able to dial in and listen to how we're going to do this. And so it is something that we post on our website. We're transparent, and we either get hate mail, or we get it's impossible, or we get I love it. Now, whoever it is that comes in, if they've got passion, we say, get a hold of us. We'll put you on the same task force so you can then, in the room, have discussion. Because here's the thing I see is when we allow legislators to just control it all, they will turn it into a Hegelian dialectic, and then there's a lot of emotions and all that. We don't have time for emotions. We have dialogue, discourse, not dialectic. And so when you put people in the room, they're responsible and that are willing to pose, counterpose, and also red cell, if you will, to test the theory. Is it going to work? And that's what you do, right? You put those people in there and you red cell it. And it's a term we use in the military to test the plan. Let's test the plan and see, will this work? So you've got to phase it in or phase out, if you will. Phase in, bringing in the revenues from other sources. All right, so we can talk about consumption tax. It's probably going to be in there. You're going to have to probably do that for a period of time. But I look at everything in 3 phases. One is stop the bleed, take care of the wound, and then long-term care. So every one of our programs on our website, docpchambers.org, if you go on there, you'll see a PDF, and you can look at H-1B plan. You can look at the energy plan. You can look at all these things. We want people to reach back out to us and say, you're crazy, or I like this. One or the other. We put on there VAT tax one time. Oh, it's too European. Okay, well, let's talk about it, right? Sometimes we throw things in there to see what is you test the battlefield. It's a probing in a minefield, and sometimes it is a minefield politically. But that's how we learn, and that's how we move forward. But the people that are working on it, we've got some pretty good plans. There's a few things, streams that we're learning about that nobody ever talks about. There's this thing called a PUF, a public university fund, that comes out of the public land in West Texas. 2 schools benefit from that. 15% of the oil that comes out of hundreds of thousands of acres of land and public land in Texas, 15% goes to A&M and to UTA. All right, this is old school stuff that was on the books. They still receive that in the tens of billions of dollars, sometimes hundreds of billions of dollars a year.
I was wondering where they get their money for NIL and college football. There
you go. So we need to look at if that's public land. Then why do only 2 entities get that? I have nothing wrong with either one of those universities. But I do if they continue to push woke DEI policy or classrooms.
Rep Harrison's all different over that,
right? Yeah, that's right. And so for me, I have to look at that and say, all right, is that another revenue stream? I don't know. Right. But we've got to look at all the different angles of what we can do to then there's a fund in there for a rainy day fund for emergencies. Okay, well, I understand we don't want to touch that. But if you haven't used the money for Harvey, and we're looking back at it now, we're doing our own analysis. it's not being. There's a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse going on. 80% of school taxes are used in the administrative side. And we've got certified teachers in the classrooms that are trying to put all the kids in one class and have a cookie cutter answer for all of Texas. When you've got a TEA that's out of control, right? I mean, I've said this before in crowds. Well, what if we abolish the TEA? Look, I'll test it. I'm not an incumbent, right? I'll test it. What do you think? The crowd goes wild.
The TEA is a problem. School, other than property taxes, school issues is my lane, and it's a problem. It's a big problem.
We sit at number 40 out of 50 states. We went from 41 11 years ago to 40. We've improved by one. Alabama and Mississippi have improved more in the last several years by decentralizing.
Another thing, I have no clue why Mike Morath is appointed. I think that should be an elected position, or absolutely elected.
Affirmative.
We're fortunate here. We have Brandon Hall. He's trying to revamp the team. He's trying to he's our SBOE elected official up here.
Yeah.
He's trying to revamp the team of 8 training. This is where TASB, Texas Association of School Board, drives down this. The bottom line is this goes to your core premise of schools being, so much money going into administrative. We want to call our school districts as independent school districts, but it's really a shadow Austin Central driven.
You're right.
Down issues through TEA and TASB and these organizations. We're going to hit taxpayer funded lobbying here in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be our next topic, but individuals that are sitting in their little bubble thinking their school district's great, rah, 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 go Wildcats on Friday night. We have a local school district here that's assessed so much debt. They're over $70,000 per enrolled kid, and they've had 3 failed bonds in a row, one for $889 million, one for $365 million, and one for $110 million. This is a district of 3,000 kids, my friend, over $70,000, 20th highest tax ISD in the state. This is insane. So, and that's going to go right over here into taxpayer funded lobbying.
Right.
Bottom line is, if we want to eliminate property tax, we have to begin to rein in some of the influence that individuals have on our legislation. Where do you fall in regards to taxpayer funded lobbying?
Well, it honestly, I mean, that one's look at how many states do we have that allow for that? Not many, right? This should not be. It needs to end. Period. Taxpayer funded lobbying. I mean, let's just think about that. Just a common sense side to that. We're paying somebody to lobby for some company who's paying them as well, right? So it just doesn't sit well with me.
I agree.
Yeah, it doesn't sit well because it's focusing. Texas is like 8 different countries or 8 different states as far as cultures itself, right? So you can't say that what happens in the ISD in Austin is the same way it's going to be run in the Panhandle, right? Or West Texas or the RGV.
Nope.
There are different flavors. So let the local agencies run that, right? The state boards. That's what I think is really the decentralizing it down to. And I'm studying Alabama, Mississippi, or my team is. You may have met Andrew. He was over with us today. That's our school teacher from Tarrant County that says, here's your problems. And then we have other people that sit on that task force, if you will, and they meet by Zoom, and then they come back to me and they write something and they put it on the website. But I study it because the important thing is if we're looking at what works, right? You look at battle plans on a battlefield. You say, what works? Okay, well, the same thing doesn't work in the desert that works in jungle warfare.
Nope.
So the same thing doesn't work in Austin that may work in RGV, in the Rio Grande Valley. So we look at what works. If we look at Alabama, Mississippi as an example of decentralizing that down to the local, that's why they've increased in so many spots. We should not be following Alabama, Mississippi. Nothing wrong with those states. I applaud them for that. But this is Texas, by God. And so we're going to do better. We have to do better. How do you maintain the 8th or 9th largest economy in the world? And we could whole nother problem set with H-1B visas and maintain that with number 40 out of 50 with education. Where these kids going to college, there's 40% roughly in the IT world going to college aren't finding jobs. They're going to work at Panera.
We got a problem.
We got a problem.
And I mean, taxpayer funded lobbying, there's a lot of services that provide information to, we have our, commissioners court, some of the city councils, they rely on some organizations that engage in a little bit of lobbying, but provide some really good services, some legislative monitoring services and things like that. But the big taxpayer funded lobbying really needs to be, it's a big issue. The halls in Austin are lined
Oh,
with $1,000 Italian handmade suits, and it's a problem. And another thing, a problem, talking about the way that Austin's funded, and this just massive amount of fraud, waste, and abuse. We've allowed people to sit in office too long. Our system of government was never meant to have people become career
Professional.
politicians. You want solid servants like yourself
Yeah.
coming in for a period of time, doing their time, and then going back to what they did. How do you feel about term limits, and where do you think, how big of a problem
Whatever
do you think that's?
legislation it requires, I think it's a huge problem. I mean, but it's what creates the monarchies, if you will, and I'm using those in quotes, or fiefdoms. The same thing happens in the military with your special, executive staff, your senior executive staff people. Those carryovers that stay long term, they learn the system so well they game the system. We need to get beyond that. We need to get to people that have that servant's heart and have that term limit. For me, I don't know legislative how we can do this. I don't think that it can be done by executive order, but boy, if I could, I would.
Well, speaking of term limits, Representative Kerwin, she's a big proponent of term limits, and she's openly discussing introducing legislation next session where she says that the end of, because the question is who's going to slit their own throat, who's on the government, TIT that's going to slit their own throat, and so she's leaning into creating legislation that says if you're currently in office, your term limits don't apply to you, but there's a hard start of when they do. So as people retire out of office, the new ones coming in, and she's hoping to get traction with that. So she's working on that.
That is great.
As a way. So maybe you can get some help on a task force talking about that.
Yeah, that's important to me. I used to get in such heated arguments in D.C. with senators and congressmen as I was walking down Capitol Hill working on taking the shots down, the mandates for the military, but also asking about term limits, what they thought. And generally, if they'd been there a while, they were not big fans. No.
It gets nice and cushy up there.
Yeah, it gets cushy.
So, our first topic was property tax, elimination of property taxes. And we went to taxpayer funded lobbying, which, that's obviously, there's a lot of vested interest outside of the average citizen in Texas and the homeowner or property owner that, is being hurt by taxpayer funded lobbying. And we talked about term limits. But, again, elimination of property taxes requires a revenue replacement. And there's a lot of momentum and discussion about controlling local government spending down at the city level, the school district level, the county level. A lot of bills were introduced last session, whether it be restrictions on how to raise taxes, restrictions on how to raise bonds. Where do you fall in controls for local government spending, in so much as, do you just want a hard limit? Are you open to just putting more control in the local constituency, to where if they want to raise their own local taxes or their own revenue, they can make that decision, via the voters box? Some of the legislation passed was, 2/3 to pass a tax increase, limiting bonds. Where do you fall?
I don't think the hard limit for me is that sounds a bit kind of a little overreach to me.
I agree.
I believe that the local level is really it's theirs to sink or swim. However, then there is a certain point at which the government may have to step in, right? And I say the doctrine of lesser magistrates. Have you read that with Mark Trahella?
I have not.
It's a good book, but here's the premise. John Knox, 1500s, goes to the Lords in Scotland and says, "Hey, I'm going to interpose using these biblical principles to say, this is how I'm going to stand in the gap for my citizens, these serfs, essentially." And then our founding fathers read him. They read John Knox, and this is really where a lot of our principles come from, our Constitution. So, a lot of that stuff comes from John Knox, which is based on actually 71 biblical scriptures. And that's what he does to interpose for his citizens. So in the book, he talks about the doctrine of lesser magistrates, lesser in the size of the term of size, right? They're not lesser. A county sheriff has more authorities than does the Department of Justice in his county, if he chooses to use it, right? Based upon the way that it's written. The federal government has certain enumerated powers, right? So when they overstep it, it's the job of the governor to interpose for the state. It's not the job of the governor then to go to the local level and say, but I'm going to tell you, here's the hard limit on you. So I would rather that they be able to use that, but with certain parameters of not controls, but to make sure that fraud, waste, and abuse does not happen, because that's people, we got the good old boy networks down at the local levels too, and
Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
that can run amok. So I don't have the exact answer on how to do that, but cognizant of it, and yes, that would be my answer is less overreach, not a hard stop, but giving them the authorities to do what they need to do locally, because every county is different. I mean, I've been in
Sure.
about 230 counties in this state, not even running. I mean, just in the Texas National Guard, all over the place during the COVID response, the border. I mean, the whole border. I know, like the back of my hand. But yeah, there's a different flavor everywhere you go, and it's. But there's also different forms of corruption everywhere you go.
Absolutely.
So,
And so
yeah.
if you, and before we get to your most recent service down at the border,
Mhm.
let's talk about protecting farms, water rights, and resources. There's a lot of issues with people worrying about the future, electricity being provided. A
Right.
lot of water issues. There's
Yeah.
a lot of data centers coming. Where do you land in regards to Texas's ability to maintain its water for its people? It's protect the land.
That right there is a commodity right now. And by 2050, West Texas will be dry in the aquifers. 2050 to 2070 estimates if the 400 data centers come in. The one in Abilene takes 463 million gallons from 2023 to 2024 in cooling of servers. Now the local people will tell you our electricity is going through the roof. We got to pay for that. I mean, it's a commodity. Electricity as well has become a commodity, but water. The water bills are going up. Right now, we only have so much in the aquifers. As we start to lose that, and we can't grow things with AI, right? We can't grow crops. We have crops out there. Go to Lubbock. I spoke to a seventh generation cotton farmer. They're going to have to shut down their operation if they don't improve the water. You get 18 inches of rain in that area. That ain't enough to refill that aquifer as you continue to bring population in. That's one thing. Just to drink, just to wash, just to, they don't water their lawns. They don't have lawns. But now you're stealing from Peter to pay Paul, but you're stealing from both of them. And for me, I look down the line. I look at how are we going to mitigate that. So I look at other states once again and say, well, what's Kansas doing? Because I heard about this, and it's an aqueduct system. All right, so the aqueduct takes water from the Ogallala River and moves it to the ranchers where it's dry. Now we pipe everything in Texas. There's no reason why we couldn't have desalination plants on the coast run by nuclear power and small nuclear yield power that doesn't melt down. And we can run that. Now, if you have somebody come in and want to put AI data centers there, then they pay the cost of that, right? Or make it a co-op so that we can use some of that coming from the government side to use for ranchers and some of that to cool their servers. You got to think a little bit outside the box on this stuff. But then you can also pipe water across the state to distribution points or straight across like Kansas did. We got pipes all over Texas. No reason we couldn't move water, because if we don't start preparing that, thinking right now, we're going to be behind the curve in those years.
It's a big deal. I lived in Colorado before I moved to Texas. My wife works for Lockheed, and they're out of water. They've sold all their water to Arizona and California years ago. The rights are gone, and they have plans in place to hydroelectric dams, create nice nature preserves. But the federal government stands in the way.
Oh yeah,
and it's insane what's going on over there.
EPA.
And absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a big deal, and I'm glad to hear that you're leaning forward on looking at solutions regarding that.
Yeah.
So now we're going to get to where you recently served, which was down on the border. This is a big deal. What are the three biggest impacts a weak border has on Texas? So what are the three biggest problems that the border is causing? And not which one's worse, because if you've been touched by human trafficking, that's going to be obviously elevated on yours. If you had a family member die from fentanyl, that's elevated on yours. So obviously this isn't like this is an individual subjective thing.
The cornerstones. The cornerstones of all this. If there's three, one of them is the drug trafficking. Yes, and fentanyl. It's my postmaster in my small town died, smoked a marijuana cigarette, had fentanyl, and died. I mean, it just happened. It's not the best practice. I saw drugs, I saw humans, I saw guns coming north. I saw money going south. Every once in a while, they'd take human trafficking south. They'd take kids out of the U.S. and take them south. I mean, this stuff gets trafficked all the way to Africa, humans. through cargo ships out of the coast of North Carolina, South Carolina. So this is a bigger problem than we like to admit. And if we truly care about our most precious children, that commodity, if you will, that's the way they're being treated is commodity. The sale of children, and some of it is real ugly, and it's even just to think about it just still kills me. I can't take the eyes out of my head that I saw of little kids that we stopped on the border, knew that they were being trafficked and rescued them, and then they look at me, know they were safe, these little kids, and take them away from some bad guys to give them to a border patrol agent, to then find out later when Tara Rodas testified before Congress that 350,000 kids of unaccompanied minors are missing, right? So that's on my watch. I can't do anything about how it happened, but I can as the governor, because we need to do a better job of taking care of our children, in this state. And so that's the number one thing for me is counter human trafficking. It's why I went into the business. Matter of fact, our team this week brought a kid back from Oklahoma that had been abused and ran away, but for a reason. He was trafficked and put in the sex business, 12 years old. Got him back though. The guys got him back, and he's safe now. So that's huge. And one of the concerns I had was when I went to DPS as a counter human trafficking guy and said, "Hey guys, where does this sit on the major crimes list?" Well, it depends on what the governor wants. It's not in the top 10. No, it should be, but they want it to be there. But it's set by the governor, commander's intent. Governor sets that. As a matter of fact, job description number 2, commander in chief of all Texas forces, State Guard, National Guard, Air Guard, DPS, Texas Rangers, the 30th largest army in the world if Texas was its own country. So that's a heavy task. It's a heavy load to take on commander in chief. And so if we're going to take that serious, number 2 problem for me is the amount of, we'll call them lily pads. I'm going to use that word. The transfer migration that brought in certain cultures that will not assimilate, as I told you about my dad, to U.S. culture. And they will try to change that neighborhood, let's say Richardson, Plano, some other cities, Frisco. They will turn those into their culture. That's what they're trying to do. We got 2 Sharia law courts. I'm going to use some my best Mexican here, my best Spanish. No bueno, right? It's not going to happen on my watch because I know what that is, right? I sat on that Afghan-Pak border and watched the madrasas radicalize kids in Pakistan to become our next generation of fighters in Afghanistan.
Miriam Shah.
Miriam Shah, right? So when you see that, that's the game that's played, and it's incumbent upon that particular. And there are some different sects. I get it, SECT sects of the Muslim faith that are more extreme than others, but ultimately, most of them are setting up a cultural shift. They're not there to assimilate and go to their mosque on the weekends or on Fridays because that's their Jumu'ah, it's their day they go to the masjid. So for me, I know the game that's played, and I know what I know how to target those things because you just follow the money. And right now we know that the Muslim Brotherhood and 7 other organizations in this state are here. Now, we just got a foreign terrorist organization designation, FTO, put on the Muslim Brotherhood. Good job. I don't care. Good job. You got transnational criminal organization moniker too. Okay, good. But that should have been 5 years ago, right? As
Yep.
my team was down there doing a threat vulnerability assessment on the border, me being the first Green Beret down there, and then bringing on a company to go down there and assess, but that's not what we were told to do. We were told to count heads like everybody else. So we really didn't get to do what we really know how to do, which is to shut that down.
So you talk about human trafficking and the Sharia law issue in the drugs and stuff like that. And here again, we're blessed. You touched on it earlier, Representative Kerr, when she passed some human trafficking laws. She's talked about pushing more next session. But the bottom line is, if you're elected governor, you're going to go through, your term will entail a different president, whether that's a conservative president
Bingo.
or whether that's what we had before.
Bingo.
So where does the Doc Chambers administration look like in regards to if at the federal level,
Right.
there's a shift in power that wants to undo some of the positive things that we've seen, during the, Trump 47 administration. Where do you lie on battling that battle if it so happens to happen on your watch?
That's a great question. So if I rewind the tape a little bit and look at the first mission that I went on Operation Lone Star, right? So that was in 2021. Went to the border. By the way, Operation Lone Star should have taken place probably 3 years before that because the damage was already being done. The amount of people coming across 12,000 when I was down there, 12,500 a week came across 1,245 miles of Texas border. So that's a lot. Del Rio, we had 12,500 come across in one day of Venezuelans. Many of those trend to Nicaragua. Del Rio, Texas, we had 17,000 Haitians show up. When the guy was riding the horse, you saw the whipping.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't whipping anybody. Those were split reins. I ride like that. So that and that guy was about 400 meters from me. There was 40 of us down there that met the first night, about 1,000 of them. We thought we were going to be able to hold them until the next morning when we saw 15,000 and went, okay, we can't hold this. The DPS sent 400 trucks down. During that time, that's an invasion. That is an invasion, right? Whether it's kinetic or not, that's an invasion, right? Because we've overwhelmed the system. You've overwhelmed our system. And that, if we go back to the 60s and look up something called the Cloward-Piven Doctrine, transfer migration to change the demographics, if you will. That was for voting and things. Back in the 60s, they talked about that. But that's also a Marxist technique to destabilize. So when you look at all these things, what do they do to us? As a guy that's astute in unconventional warfare, if I want to overthrow a country, I demoralize, I destabilize, okay? I disenfranchise a populace. Okay, so our populace, our people right now, you can see Fox News versus CNN. That's just one. Antifa versus non-Antifa. That's number two. There are multiple ways to disenfranchise people. You take things away from them, COVID, right? And then you give it back. Stockholm syndrome. So you start to see the little things where the globalists, are testing the waters. But in the meantime, you have people that sit in our own government, all the way up to the federal level, all the way down to state level too, that are either by commission or omission responsible for this, right? One or the other. Now, if you're that dang dumb to allow it to happen on your watch, you don't need to be in politics. You don't need to be in leadership. Okay, not necessarily politics. Politics is just getting there. The true sense of the word politics, by the way, Aristotle, the way he wrote it, the polis, the city-state, to add action to for the people of the city-state. So most of them fail at that anyway. I'm an action guy. Somebody sent me an action figure picture of me and my dog Joe and said, "This is you, you Doc, you're an action guy." Yeah, we are action, because if we sit and wait for the perfect plan, it's never going to happen. We've got to have a plan to go out the door and start, controlling the controllables. So for me, that requires action. So what I have done, if I was the governor at the time during the Biden administration, what happened? The ports of entry would have been shut down. All right. You say, well, you can't do that, Pete, because the feds own those ports of entry. Yeah, but how many meters inside of this state belongs to us, right? So you just put a little turnaround there and say, okay, all trucks, we're going to check them ourselves. Because I know this. I know there's been some bad things, and some of the things I'm not still under NDA to talk about. Some bad things have come across that border, all the way down to New Mexico, where people get paid off on that border to bring things across that are national defense issues, right? They can take planes out of the sky. We'll just put that there and you can do the math. So if that's the case, then I've got to think, if this is an invasion, and that guy that's going to say that, I'm going to look at the most dangerous course of action, right? And say, we've got to be ready for that, right? Right?
Yeah.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
But the MOCOA, most likely, that's what we're ready to handle. But the most dangerous is what we're going to be capable of handling. We were never on Operation Lone Star capable of handling the most dangerous course of action, because the way that the rules of engagement were written by lawyers did not give us authorities, because you need the FTO designations in the transnational criminal organizations, and you need the leadership to sign off on it. But if there's a risk assessment, the leadership says, how does that poll? If I were to ask you as the governor, how does that poll? If I ever say that in my office, slap me. I'm giving you permission.
Fair enough.
Come up and slap me and say, Doc, because I will not poll it. I will have done the homework before it happens, because the planning comes way before something happens. Otherwise, you're reactionary. You've got to be left to bang on these things. When I say the bang, the bomb in the road, we got to be thinking way over here. The combat hunter program the Marines did, on our side, we call it soft side. I used to teach that. In fact, I taught the Marines at Guantanamo Bay hunter program, parts of it. But that's how we get ahead of these things. And that's how, as Rocky Balboa says, hey, that's how winning is done. That's how we do this, because then we can set the conditions for a non-permissive environment for those people when they come on our border. Now, I know this like the back of my hand. I've seen it in many countries. I've been in the middle of color revolutions downrange. And what's happening to us right now, it's a hybrid of a color revolution that's taking place in our country that has allowed, I'm going to guesstimate now, and it's used based on some intelligence, but I can't give the specifics, between 10 and 20,000 combatant type actors are in this state alone. Okay. They didn't come across with weapons. Otherwise, we would have stopped them. We did stop some. But I'm going to say that the ones that are here now, I've got to ask, what are they waiting for? Right? The trend of Aragua, I know what they're here for. They're thugs. They're hired thugs. I mean, we saw what happened in Aurora, Colorado, and El Paso with the trend of Aragua. We provided a lot of information to the state, to DPS. Our teams did, when we were able to get information on the border to make sure that we could plus up whatever we knew so they could be ready for it. What they do with it is up to them. But for me, as the commander in chief, if they're not showing me courses of action and showing me how they're going to take it down from within, anybody assigned or affiliated with any of those 7 that I was talking about, from Muslim Brotherhood all the way to Tren de Aragua, doesn't matter the nationality, doesn't matter what they believe in, it doesn't matter anything. If they have some ill intent in this state, we're gonna find, fix, finish, expose, analyze, and disseminate, and we're gonna do that over and over and over until they're gone.
Well, find, fix, finish. Stanley McChrystal, great general.
Yeah.
Great general. It's having been to Africa and to Middle Eastern countries and with aid deployments, and your experience too. A lot of people are going to take what you're saying as a very, very aggressive approach. And at the same time, here in Texas and here in America, we're very blessed that we are we have a very comfortable, easy life comparatively. And some of the horrors that are very acceptable and day-to-day occurrences and very common in other countries, we have imported that here. And, before we start to close out this episode here, give us just reiterate your experiences with the violence and the overwhelming devaluation of life, and what, here in America, we've lost touch with how horrible human can be to human.
Okay. So great question. The definition of war, if you ask me that, what is war? I'm going to tell you this. It's insanity that's tangible. That's the only way I can put it. It's something I would never wish on anybody. If you told me, Doc, you got to go back and do this again, yeah, I'll put on my body armor and I'll go back and do it again. But not because I want to, but because there are people in harm's way that are oppressed, and we have to rescue them or pull them out of that. I know what it looks like. I can smell it. I can see it. To be prepared for something like that, you don't want people that don't understand this to be running that operation. You don't. We brought in Eisenhower. He led us through the Cold War that got to Reagan when the wall came down and the Soviet Union fell. You have to have, if you will, a hybrid war type governor at this point. This is the only way we're going to get, if we're going to be serious about this. It's not the only way. There are many other ways. But if you don't listen, if I'm the harbinger, Ezekiel chapter 33, I'm the watchman. If I tell you, sir, this is coming, and you don't heed this, then it's on your head, sir, not mine, right? I'm the scout. And I say there's, 5 T-72s out in the open. Okay, if you don't listen, then people will hurt. And if it never happens and you are prepared for it, everybody sleeps in their bed comfortably. And that's why it's so important for me, is the baseline for this. Yes, baseline is physical security. The next one is physiologic. No mRNA products in our beef. No shots in these people's arms until we verify that these things are safe. That's physiologic. Decentralizing medical care. And then the next one is fiscal. All these securities are layered upon the bottom line, which is you don't go into a base camp without putting out security first. So that's just the way I think. but I know it because this is the time, this is the place, this is the moment such as this that requires that type of thinking. Or at least having somebody that you listen to that's your advisor. I'm going to listen to my advisor on economics, much like the governor should have listened to us when we were working on the border and how to adhere to the Texas Constitution.
Yeah, it's the horrors that man are capable of causing. It's something.
It's
It's something.
can't even
and there's
describe it.
certain things. No matter how much you want to package them up in a nice, well wrapped and put a comfortable bow on it. Human nature is very, very ugly,
It's ugly.
and we need to come
You
to
don't
grips with that.
negotiate with barbarians.
Absolutely
We
not.
can't negotiate with that. I
Absolutely
mean,
not.
and I'm not saying every person that came here was a barbarian, but I know what they look like.
Yeah.
When you see a TDA guy on the border come in with an AK-47 tattooed on the side of his face, it's not hard to figure out that guy doesn't mean any goodwill towards Americans or wants to assimilate.
Absolutely, and Texas definitely needs leadership that's aware of
Yes, sir.
these
Yes,
issues.
sir.
So as we get ready to close here, as Texans are considering you for the next governor of this great state, what is the clearest promise within a few sentences that you are making to Texans if they so vote for you?
Well, you said in the very beginning when you read from our website, it took a while for us to develop that. They sent me a branding person, said, "What's your brand?" I said, "My brand's America, Texas." Well, how do we codify that? Transparency, right? You know what's happening. Remember, well, you may not remember, you're a little old, I'm a little older, but Ronald Reagan, my first president that I served under, would have fireside chats, would sit down and talk to you. You'll be hearing from me. I won't be spending time in the governor's mansion. I'll be on the road. I'll be going around the state. I'll be jumping on birds. I'll be in the command and control bird on the border. We'll be out there, but you have to have that transparency and to have the interaction because it's the one thing that the governor has that nobody else has. They say that lieutenant governor has more legislative power. Okay, that's fine. That's perceived. What do we really have? We have the first article, section 2 of the Bill of Rights. Powers inherent in the people. The bully pulpit, if the governor is honest with them, they'll lead, right? They'll force the hand of their legislators or they'll vote them out.
Well, and you're up against the bully pulpit of a sitting governor with a war chest that's a huge hill of behind. So use it for making
This
Texas
is
great.
that's I always like a good fight.
Well, you're
that's
in
where we're
one,
at.
so and
It's-
we need to have it.
Yeah.
If a voter's unsure,
Mhm.
I want you now to reach out to the voters here.
Sure.
And tell them exactly why they should consider you for governor, and what's the strongest reason and strongest traits that you bring to Doc Chambers' terms.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Texas, listen, I'm a servant. I've been a public servant for a long time. I will work the same way I did. I've bled for this Constitution, and so have you. In downrange, we've done that because we swore an oath to protect the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And it wasn't for the left, and it wasn't for the right, and it wasn't for a religion, and it wasn't for color. It was for the principle that Constitution that we served under, we hold dear. And so I will operate the same way as governor. Yes, I have a firm belief and I have a firm faith in my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, but I will govern the same way, which means it doesn't matter what you believe in, what color you are, whether you are on the left or on the right. I think I will appeal to those people of common sense that understand that we're in a different moment where the traditional politician, if you will, and that's in quotes, is not the favored when you have a servant's heart or somebody that's demonstrated the capacity to go up against the federal government, in my case with the DOD, to interpose, to stand the gap for you. And that's what I've done and I'll continue to do. And then one day, a year, for one term from now, hopefully, or 2 terms at the most, I'll retire and go raise my cattle on the Red River. Thank you.
Term limit. You're already talking about a second term. Look at that.
Right.
Already getting Austin.
Well, I think that maximum should be 2. Yeah, but I'm with you. Yeah.
Anyways, Doc, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you as we wrap this up.
Yeah, Raj, it's Doc Pete Chambers, Pete Chambers with an S, .org. Go there and you can read all the policy stuff and you can chime in and help us out. And we're taking donations, and the best thing is ours are, you press the button, it says $18.36, $18.36. You can give $1,800. But most of our donations come that way, and that's the year Texas became a republic. So it's a good way to give back to the honor, prestige, and esprit de corps of what William Barrett Travis talked about. Everything dear to the American character to come to our aid with all dispatch.
Well, Doc, we appreciate you coming out to Johnson County.
Yeah,
we appreciate you spending time with us, meeting some of our great citizens here, and seeing our conservative values. And I want to wish you the best of the luck, sir. And good luck. And if you ever want an opportunity to share your voice again, we'd love to have you back.
I guarantee you, we'll be back before this is over. We'll come back through again.
Awesome, I appreciate that.
We'll do it.
Well, thank you very much. And Texas, Johnson County, District 58, it's really hard to throw your hat in the ring, especially against someone as big and powerful as the governor of the state of Texas. And anybody that decides to run for office at any time deserves all the credit in the world. We need more citizen involvement. We need more citizen education. We need better civics lessons. And the bottom line is it all starts with turning out and getting out and voting. And before you get out and vote, you need to research the candidates. You need to research issues, and you need to figure out and lean into what's important to you and what you foundationally stand on, so you can make those decisions. And Doc, again, thanks very much.
Sure.
And good luck. And we look forward to
Greg.
watching you run all over Texas. Thanks.
We'll be sending reports back.
Fair enough.
Voting season is upon us. And what better way to exercise your right to vote than by casting your vote for APOS floors and granite countertops to help you update your home? APOS offers design, fabrication, and installation of granite countertops, floors, and more for both residential and commercial projects. APOS is where customer service and commitment to the community come together. Vote today for APOS floors to install your new floor and granite countertops.